One interesting stat I can tell you is on mental health. Like when we entered that space as a benefit, we saw that usual utilizations are less than like 2-3%. What that means is if you're a 1,000 employee company, maybe only 20 people are actually talking to a therapist or using that benefit.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about what's the mission of Nova Benefits?
Right. So I'll be honest with you. When we started Nova Benefits, we were looking more at the market, and we said that health insurance looks interesting as a market, and that was just after COVID. This is like March, April of 2020. So that's how we entered it really. But then over time, we figured out that how meaningful and impactful that area or what we are doing could be. So right now, our mission statement is that we want to make workplaces happier and healthier. And the thought process behind that is that to be happy at work, you need a few things in order. And we like to think of it as three basic things. First is how well you are paid. Second is how meaningful is your work. And third is your basic mental and physical health. And the third thing is where we really come in, because we feel the first two are better left to the company itself. Like you can't really influence that as a vendor or as an outsider. But health and both physically and mentally is something where we would like to be the experts, come in and help HR teams really impact that. And the way we do this is we start from the insurance bit, which is like the most common benefit that all companies in India have now started offering, pretty much like 99% of them. But then we go beyond that, because insurance is something which comes into picture only when you are in a hospital, and it's mostly not a very happy event. It's only when you have a maternity claim you might be happy. Everything else is mostly something stressful that people are going through. So then we turn that into a not so bad experience with at least your claim going through smoothly. But then everything before that, on more preventive side, things like health checkups, teleconsultations, talking to mental health counselors, doing fitness related challenges, things like gym memberships. So these are the things that we focus on in addition to the core insurance benefit, and that's what Nova is today.
One part that you said is sticking out to me, which is making workplaces healthier and happier. And I think that's really top of mind in the industry today because there's a lot of talk on work culture, work life balance, and so on. So, over the past 5 years, you must have worked with a lot of companies. Like, how have you seen work culture evolve in maybe your customer segment, in the ecosystem at large?
Right. So when we started back in 2020, obviously being a startup, we were working with like other small companies, SMBs majorly. And at that time, remote work was the norm, because it was like in 2020, like it's all lockdown for that year and the next year. So at that time, what became important was earlier things were very much focused around the office. That if you want to, let's say your claim is stuck, there is someone sitting in your office, and you go and talk to them. But now suddenly you need these systems, which we are used to maybe on the Swiggy, Zomato side of things. So that was one thing we saw, that remote is changing even basic things like health insurance for people. Other thing we saw is that mental health was a big focus because people were losing, people around them or themselves going through COVID. So that was something where HR teams need a lot of help in how they can handle that. How can they provide support? There were things like, doing vaccination camps. So COVID was basically, you can say COVID was what was happening early on. Then slowly things, I think after second wave, things started changing and more hybrid kind of environments came in. And then things like doing some in-person sessions, etc. So those things started happening on the employee engagement side. Even checkups happening as camps, where you do like an annual health checkup, and someone comes and collects blood samples for all your team members, which makes it a event, which has its own benefits, because remotely it's like you're sitting at your home, someone comes, and the same happens with other people as well. So these have been some changes, and now I think COVID is kind of behind us now, and now people are focusing more on things like gratitude. And so even we are building some things there, that how do you build a culture of appreciating people? How do you you know get people to utilize these benefits more? So these are some of the things that are now the focus for us. One interesting stat I can tell you is on mental health. Like when we entered that space as a benefit, we saw that usual utilizations are less than like 2-3%. What that means is if you're a 1,000 employee company, maybe only 20 people are actually talking to a therapist or using that benefit, whereas around 30% people might need or have might benefit from doing it. So that has been like one of the focus areas for us now, that how do you increase awareness, how do you help HR teams so that more of their teams can leverage whatever is being offered.
Let's take a step back into where Nova Benefits enters this picture. Can you say a little bit more in detail about what specific services or products that you offer to your customers?
So as I said, so insurance is like the basic, you can say the base of a pyramid that we offer. So there we come in, we help HR teams find out that what kind of benefits should they offer to their teams, what are competitors or others in their industry offering. Is it like a 5 lakh sum assured? Do they cover parents or not? Uh, Stuff like that. So that's where we start. Then we obviously ensure that the delivery of that, after you buy an insurance policy, the delivery of that experience is great. That means having great claims experience, minimizing manual work for the HR teams, because uh, even today, insurance is done in very manual ways, where you have like Excel files being shared on emails and data all over the place. So those are some things that we fix with technology for the HR teams. And then for the employees themselves, making the claims experience much better, where you can actually track where your claim is. You know that when will things move. It's not like a black box that okay, I submitted it, maybe in 15 days or 30 days or 2 months, I get to hear back. So these are some things we do on the insurance side. Then we go one step further. You can say if I make a spectrum from like very reactive care to more preventive care. So annual health checkups is the second biggest offering that we have. The problem with insurance is only, as I said, like when it's you end up in a hospital, or only 10% people is usually that segment who end up claiming. But as a company, you have like more people, and you would want that everyone gets that benefit, or they feel that you care about the team. So health checkups has proven to be a really, really good tool there, because one, a lot of us are sitting on undiagnosed chronic conditions like hypertension, borderline diabetes, obesity, some chronic pain of some sort, or some deficiency of vitamin D, etc. So, and the other thing is, you don't need something bad to happen to do a preventive health checkup. So we have seen even companies with like 95% of their employee base going and having a checkup done, and then finding out that okay, if I start taking vitamin D supplements today, or if I start improving my lifestyle, doing more of physical activity, I can actually not enter into a diabetic territory. So that's our second biggest offering. And then we do stuff on mental health side as well, where we help companies offer like a counseling program where employees who need mental health counseling, they can talk on a one-on-one basis, because typically mental health counseling is very expensive. It costs something like 1,500 rupees an hour, and people who need that the most, like they never take the initiative to one talk to someone. That itself is hard, but then you have to pay a lot as well. So companies have a very important role here, that uh, employees who are going through burnout or any kind of mental health condition like stress, sleeping disorders, struggling with something in their personal life, they get some help. So there we do a bunch of stuff as well. We can go into more detail. And then we do some stuff on the fitness side, where we offer gym memberships at discounted rates, things like cult memberships, etc. So this is pretty much, like you can say, the entire spectrum of things we do.
You mentioned that employees or really anyone only cares about or like starts finding out about insurance when something goes wrong. So yeah, I think in general, like we're all kind of sitting on like this big thing that we don't really know the details of, and then something goes wrong, and then we are like, okay, what do I do here? So looking at it upfront, like let's say for someone who's an employee in an organization that is getting employee insurance on behalf of the organization, what are the things that an employee should try to find out or try to be aware of ahead of time about their insurance?
So few things which are very basic. Like the first thing to look at is the sum insured, because that's the limit of uh, you know money that the insurance will pay out for you. So is it 5 lakhs, 3 lakhs, 10 lakhs is something you should look at first. Second is who all are covered in that insurance. Some companies offer insurance for just the employee, right? Others say that even if even if a loved one is going through something uh, so intense, it will have a impact on my team members, financial and mental health. So they cover spouse, children as well. And the third, category there could be where companies cover parents as well, because mostly parents are the one, where they are in their older age segment, and that's where more of these health incidents happen. So who's getting covered is important. And then you can go into your details, that is there a deductible, or is there like a copay that is on my policy? Are there some sublimits, etc.? But I would say these, just top three things if I really have to list: sum insured, who's covered, and what's the copay, maybe. And that's pretty good for, I think, any corporate.
When did you guys get started with Nova Benefits?
This is back in 2020, as I mentioned, like just after COVID. So earlier we were exploring some other ideas. Saransh is my co-founder, so him and I, we both had this interest in fintech and healthcare. So we explored a bunch of ideas, but then we realized that health insurance is literally the intersection. You have healthcare and finance, and COVID really made it clear that health is the priority. Everyone's thinking about it. Even we were thinking about it. So that's when we got into this space around like March, April of 2020.
So today, with this plethora of offerings that Nova Benefits has, who would you say is your ideal customer?
So our ideal customer today is any organization in India who's people first, or who wants to care for their employees, who wants to make sure that their team doesn't have to go through a bad experience when making an insurance claim, wants to make sure that they feel taken care of, because you yourself don't do a health checkup. But if your parents force you, or your spouse forces you, or your company forces you, you might actually get that done, and you might find something and take care of it, so that you don't have to actually make a claim later on. So companies who basically care about these things as well, in addition to uh, just the insurance bit, is an ideal customer for us. And they range in all sizes. We have seen companies as small as like 10 employees, where the founders are very clear that insurance, so like we really need insurance. That's a mandatory thing. We can't imagine like us not offering insurance to our team members. To companies like 5,000, 10,000 employees and more as well.
What would you say is the 10-year mission for Nova Benefits?
Your mission would be realizing that that mission statement, that we can make workplaces happier and healthier. So one of the things I like to tell my team is, if we can be in a place where we can confidently say, sign up with Nova, and after a year, you will actually see that your workplace is happier and people are healthier. There are certain metrics which we have moved in terms of health, both physically, mentally. Uh, that's where we want to be. That for most of our customers, we can predictably say that you just wait and watch for 1 year. Now we've gotten Nova on board, and these things will be better.
So as co-founder and CTO, so you have a lot to build. Tell us about the tech that powers this whole experience.
So on tech, there are like again multiple layers, and I can pretty much link it to even our years of existence so far. Initially, it was mostly about just bringing things online, because traditionally it's a very very offline and paper driven process. So first 2 years, like that's literally where we spent all time, building some standards. That what does a claim mean? What does the insurance policy mean? How do you even say what is covered, not covered? How do you explain things in an easier way to employees? How can they claim? How can you then make them claim through the application? So these were some things that we were doing from the customer side, but then on the back end, there was a lot of mess that you have to deal with, because there are 30 insurers in India. Each of them have their own processes, their own ways of doing things. They all call the same thing by different names. So handling that was our first few years of major, you can say, efforts. Then we started going more into automating workflows for the HR teams, where we built integrations with HR MS providers, with other places where employees hang out, like Slack, Google Workspace, Office 365, etc., so that you don't have to take the same data, download an Excel or something, and then send it across and do stuff. So I think something similar to maybe what your organization does. So doing that for the insurance, like how do you provision insurance in an easy way? One of the key problems with insurance is like every other thing in a HR or IT space, you just need the employees' details. In insurance, you start needing the families' details as well, and they need to be accurate. You can't be okay with the spelling error in the name, or month and day being switched around in the date of birth. So this is where the second, you can say, set of things were built. And then more recently, what we have been focusing on is more on the preventive side. So how do you integrate the health checkup experience onto the insurance experience, and you give people digitized results, you give them takeaways that, okay, these 2 3 metrics are in red for you, these are in amber, and these are in green. So that's what you need to be focusing on. Doing integrations with other providers on mental health side. We even have benefits on pet care, for example, because there is a decent segment of our customer base where people would have pets, and they would want that if the company has a deal where they can get discounted offering. So building this platform where we have over 100 benefits now, and we pick and choose that for each customer what is most relevant. And then the very recent, you can say, with Gen AI coming in, we have been able to leverage things and make both insurance also much more seamless. So doing things like taking a document, because claims, if you ever made a health insurance claim, you will have like 50 documents of all sorts. Some are handwritten, some are printed, some are crumpled up, and then you need to take data from all those, fill into a form, and get a reimbursement. So extracting information from these documents, categorizing them, helping fill claim forms automatically, doing integrations with insurers on the back end so that the claim goes through seamlessly without needing a human in the loop. So these are some things on the insurance side. And then beyond insurance, we have built things like, we call this feature called Magic Bot, which allows you to basically ask questions about coverages on your policy. A lot of people would come to us that, hey, is LASIK covered? I broke my arm and I have a fracture, that the doctor has said. Will the company insurance pay for it? So doing these basic, you can say, chatbot kind of things, building stuff to drive fitness as a culture. So stepathons are some things we are doing. On the recognition side, we build another small bot which allows you to send gratitude to your team members. So you work with someone and they really help you. You can send something to them as like a small card, and that just creates a culture of people thanking each other. So these are some small, we can say, on the engagement side, that now we are leveraging AI and other tools.
So, as a customer of Nova Benefits, the managers on the customer side essentially get a portal where they can manage the employee wellness insurance throughout the organization. Do employees also get access to something?
So employees interact with all these things, right? Like you do your health insurance, you do your health checkup, you do your mental health, risk assessments, counseling, etc. You participate in fitness challenges. And the key value actually for the company that we are trying to bring is that you come to our platform and you get a 360-degree view of all the benefits that are there, and you correlate data, because as a organization, you're sitting on a lot of these. Today how it happens is, it's not like companies were not doing these things earlier. They were doing it, but it was like you had one vendor for your mental health program, you have another vendor for your health insurance, you have a third vendor for health checkups. In fact, you might have multiple vendors for health checkups, because your team in Delhi goes to maybe Apollo 24/7 for checkups. Your team in Mumbai goes to Tata 1mg. So how do you combine all this data? You cross correlate, and you can actually see some interesting insights that teams which are maybe getting lesser kudos on the gratitude bot, maybe it shows up after a quarter or so that they don't feel too motivated, or they feel that their work is not appreciated. So you can actually diagnose this much sooner and take some action. So that is something we're trying to build now, where we integrate all this data and give a dashboard to the leaders in the company to take some action on it.
Operate in this space, or does a startup need to follow any licensing regulations, something like that?
Definitely. So by now you would have like noticed we are dealing with a lot of health data, a lot of very, very private data about a company. So one, definitely from the insurance side, you need like need a license from the insurance regulator, which is IRDAI in India. So we are a IRDAI regulated insurance broker as well, which allows us to deal in insurances in the first place. And then we have done things like ISO certification, SOC 2 certification. Right now, we are going through a GDPR and DPDP related certifications, which are more focused on data privacy. So, like, we have to like data is really the key behind what we do, and we would want to keep it safe for our customers. So, while we practice that anyway, getting these certifications just shows it externally as well. Then that's what we are doing.
Let's switch gears. I want to talk a little bit about you. Tell us about your journey, like maybe starting with childhood or adolescence. Like, what was your early formative years like?
I'm from Udaipur, a beautiful city in Rajasthan. And my family, so it's like a typical Banya family. If you make a list of 50 people who are like closely in my list of relatives, they're all, running some or the other trading business or something in manufacturing or something or the other, basically a business. So from childhood, that was the only thing I had seen, honestly. So somewhere that entrepreneurial bent was always there. And then around like sixth, seventh grade, I got introduced to this world of like coding and got my hands on some book where like I just learned like basic coding essentially. And around the same time, internet, and at that time, like dial up is what was more common. That's what we had. So I found out about like how you can build websites and make some money online. There were these forums, there were things like Fiverr, etc. So that's where it started really, where I started freelancing a bit. Over time, that grew into slightly bigger projects, you can say. But then around 11th, 12th grade, like everyone else, you get forced into, that study for these competitive exams, get some rank, get into an IIT kind of race. So did that, but then the good thing is once I got into IT, so I joined IIT Delhi in the computer science department. So interesting thing was like a lot of these seniors had a lot of ideas that I want to build this, I want to build that, like some version of Playo back in 2013, and bunch of other ideas like that. So that exposed me to uh, like building a lot of applications, you can say, or tools for these seniors. That got me really interested that okay, there's more than just freelancing. You can actually build something of your own and scale that, make a business out of it. There was something in second year which was slightly more serious of a startup where we had raised a small angel round. It was called Sarthi, and we are trying to build a platform for college alumni and school alumni. So idea was that school students need guidance from their bhaiyas and didis now in college, and then college students need projects, internships, job opportunities from alumni who are right now working somewhere. So we're trying to build something. Really naive at that point. So really, I mean, we built something, but then did not realize what product management is and how you need to get adoption up, what business even means. So that took us a while. But then the learnings were interesting for me in the sense that I can't just focus on building tech. You have to step outside. The tech is the easier part. You need to really understand what the customer wants and how do you solve that problem. So that's when I decided, okay, I need to get some experience, read more. There's a lot more to learn. Started reading some books, etc. Meanwhile, took up a job at Samsung in South Korea that gave me like some more time basically to meet people, to read about things, and finally, like after I had worked at Samsung for almost 3 years, I quit that job and started up. That was always the plan also because I could not have imagined myself like working uh, in a job for a really long time. So I always had this timeline for me that in 2 to 3 years I want to quit and start something of my own, regardless, like having an idea or not having an idea, having a co-founder, not having a co-founder. I got lucky in both fronts. I met Saransh like maybe 6 months before I quit, and it just started. So Saransh was from IIT Bombay, so there was no direct connection that we had. But then there was a senior of mine, again from computer science, who was working uh, at Samsung, and Saransh had reached out to him that, hey, I want to start up again. Let's do something. And he was like, I just got married. I want to now have a stable job. But talk to Yash. Like Yash is this person who keeps blabbing about startups and doing something. So that's how we got connected. We just brainstormed for a while, like almost 3-4 months. Pretty similar to, I think, what I read one of your like posts recently, that co-founder dating process is what we went through. Did like some side projects, had a lot of conversations about our values, why we are starting up, what are our interests, what are we passionate about. And yeah, that's how we then decided that let's start up together. And in fact, that's when we like.
I'm just now realizing how similar your and mine journey are, have been, and I can draw so many parallels. Like I can relate to so much of it. But continue.
Okay. That's exactly what. So, I was actually still working at Samsung back then. This was February of 2020. And I'd come to India for like a week just so that we worked together. Like you can say that was like the final stage of our dating journey, where we spent like a week working together. We were at the Axel Launchpad in Koramangala, and we obviously hit it off. Like we got done so much more in those 7 days than maybe like the month before that. So we realized that we are both, driven people who can work at the same frequency and care about same things and bring complementary things to the table. Saransh was that the sales expert. He had a network. He, would not hesitate to reach out to 100 people and, get feedback, get customers. And I was pretty comfortable with building software. I was like, you bring a problem as long as it doesn't require, years of R&D. Uh, there's something in tech we can do to, solve it. So that worked well together. And that's what we have been doing ever since. I think just picking a problem, solving problem, getting customers who face that problem. And yeah.
I want to go back to what you said a bit earlier, which is anyone can build tech these days. And I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but like at least I believe that tech is no longer a differentiator. It's all about your positioning, your how you attack a problem, how you are actually solving for the actual user journeys and outcomes out there. Tell us a little bit about your go-to-market journey. How did you get started selling to your first initial customers?
So, this is somewhere a lot of credit goes to Saransh. Uh, he had this very clear in his mind that, you don't need to build first, you actually sell first. And that's something that really helped us. Literally, we had our first customer before I had written a single line of code. So, we had just made a landing page and we were just pitching that, okay, we can help you find uh, health insurance for your company. And at that time, even we were running an experiment on retail insurance, that if you're an individual, we can help you find the right insurance policy. Or if you're a company, we can help you find the right policy again for your employees. And interestingly, after we closed the first customer, like that's when we said, okay, now let's build a platform, that can actually solve these problems for this customer. And so yeah, that's how we started. Literally, like I just whipped something in a day, pretty much like a hackathon, uh, you could say. And that's what we've been doing. We always, keep figuring out what are the pain points our customers are facing, and then build it, rather than building something and then saying, hey, we have built this, now does it solve any of your problems. So that has helped us a lot. And in terms of GTM, uh, it's basically we started with like initially venture funded companies, because that's where the network was, other founders, other portfolio companies of investors, because Saransh has a background in venture capital, like VC used to work for Axel in the past. So that helped us. And then slowly we spun up our marketing engines and our outbound sales team. And that's what primarily drives our business today.
Starting up, how did your friends and family react?
So that was maybe much easier for me, because as I said, my family, like everyone is from business background. It was harder to convince them that, let me go and take up this job in South Korea and work from outside India. So that was the harder part. They were pretty happy that, okay, if coming back to India, you're actually starting a business. So they were quite happy, honestly, and quite supportive of it. And from friend side also, like I'm sure you must have noticed, uh, like all like it's a common thing that everyone wants to start up. So you talk to everyone, they will say like, or half the people will say, eventually mujhe khud ka karna, I want to start up eventually. Like right now I'm doing this, but eventually I want to start on my own. So there were enough of those people around me as well. So again, they were pretty happy, and I can actually see that now a lot of juniors, a lot of other people around me, they're all starting up. So yeah, really, I think we have a good ecosystem in India, which pushes you to start up, do more, and people help each other a lot.
I want to talk a little bit about how do you personally manage your work-life balance, and I think that's particularly relevant for you. Like, and in fact, for I imagine everyone working at Nova Benefits, that you have to be doubly aware that okay, we have to build this into a large company while also helping enable this journey of wellness in our customers' organization as well.
Totally. I mean, and as a founder, I think you would know that better than a lot of people as well. Like it's extremely, like there are so many fires everywhere. There's so many opportunities everywhere, and you feel like you want to do everything. So what you have to figure out is like what to say no to. I think it's like a beaten advice by now, but only when you really face it, you realize that what that means.
Weird when there are no fires.
Yeah, true that. So yeah, letting some fires burn, saying no to like most things, so that you can actually focus on the few things. One of the hacks you can say, or it's not even a hack, you really need to do that. I think if you have to build a big organization or build a big business, is rely on your people uh, a lot. So that's something I learned the hard way, you can say, because early on as a techie, I would be like, okay, I'll fix this, I'll do that, whatever problem just bring to me. But then there comes a time where you become the bottleneck for the business's growth. And that's when I realized that you need to start investing in people. Like you need to delegate really effectively. You need to train people so that they can, free of you spend like 1 week or a month working on someone, but then they let you off the hook for like a year more of that task or that fire, basically. And today, like, this is one thing I'm proud of, that there are a lot of great people in Nova who I can rely on, and I can sit, for example, on a Saturday and talk about all this without having to worry that okay, what is happening is like something broken in production, or our customer is not able to do certain things, etc. So yeah, relying on your team, enabling them, and people really take, like I've seen, again, we have been lucky, I think, to find a lot of great people who want more challenges, who actually feel driven by uh, you know taking things off your shoulder. So that is another thing. And third, I think the living breathing example, like you need to focus on your mental and physical health. So that's something I strongly feel about. And like I, for example, I see a clear difference when I work out versus when I don't work out. Like the days are just very different. So having that small win, that okay, at least you ran for 5 kilometers, or you did your whatever weights ka session, or uh, that itself is like a good kicker mentally. And then physically, you just feel fitter and you perform better. So I think physical health needs to be there if you have to perform.
Every day that you work out is already a success.
Yeah, exactly. So even if nothing else works out, at least you have worked out.
Apart from that, I want to dive a little bit into the journey of learning. So what I've noticed is with all the founders in my network that inevitably you end up becoming an expert in the domain that you're operating in. How has your journey been learning about the insurance industry, learning about employee wellness, learning about maybe work culture, work-life balance? What are some things that you would say that you know now that you didn't when starting this journey?
A lot of things. I think literally write a book about, and just the number of the topics that you mentioned. Each of those are like literally really long enough books on their own. I would say so. A lot of things, honestly, like insurance. We knew nothing about insurance before starting Nova. So I mean that was a huge learning process. Like, what does it mean to, like, what is insurance really like? That even that question was not very clear. So I realized that okay, like you're actually, you know, so mostly when you buy something, you pay money, you get something. In insurance, you pay money and you give your risk to someone else. So that understanding that what you're really dealing with is like you're taking risk off from people. So if Adi wants to not have the risk that something happens to my family and I have to foot a big bill from an hospital, like that's the risk we can buy from you, or like you can sell basically by paying me money as a like an insurance intermediary or an insurance company. So from the very fundamental to like what the nuances mean, how important it is to understand the terms and conditions of like what is covered, what is not covered, which things are more important, which are not. Uh, there's like a lot of it, I think. So yeah, that's on the insurance side. Uh, Learning more about underwriting, what it means to have a good risk, bad risk. So there are many things from the business side that you need to start understanding if you have to help your customers or your clients get the right insurance. How do you control? So in B2B, one interesting thing that happens is that your premiums are not fixed. So if you have a certain amount of claims in, let's say, last year for all your employees combined, this year your premium gets decided based on that claims experience or that outgo. So that makes it even more complex. Like in retail insurance, you have things like no claim bonus and stuff like that. If you don't claim, your sum insured goes up. But it's the other way around in B2B, where if there are a lot of claims, your premium goes up. You decide the coverage. You say, I want 1 crore of coverage, you get that. No one is really stopping you. It's a completely bespoke product that you can make when you're doing B2B insurance. But then the premiums have to be decided and you have to learn underwriting. You have to figure out how to strike that balance of cost and the benefits that you're providing. So that is on the insurance side. I think you mentioned, I think on employee wellness, there one of the biggest learnings I would say is the awareness and utilization. Initially, we would think that, we need to make better and better and better programs that you go deep into mental health or you go deep into health checkups. But what we realized is that if like people don't know about these benefits, it's not going to help. So first thing you need to solve for is like these benefits are good enough at least on the base level. Like a checkup is good enough in the sense it identifies what's wrong with you. A mental health benefit is good in the sense you talk to a therapist and they probably help you unravel like what's happening in your mind and then probably find some strategies to cope with it. But people need to know about it. People need to know that they can leverage these things, and that's the harder job. And then making sure people actually end up using it. A lot of companies, and even today, a lot of other companies in the space, they operate in a way where they say that we are offering these benefits, but they don't want you to use those benefits because when you use it, it incurs cost, right? Like if you do a checkup, someone is paying for that checkup, someone is paying that 1,000 to 5,000 rupees, depending on the kind of checkup to the lab, right? So a lot of vendors initially would be like that. We're offering all these. You'll have a list of 50 benefits, but none of them get used. You look after a year, you do a survey, and 90% people won't know that, oh, my company was giving me health checkups or oh, my company was giving me insurance. So changing that has been like a uh, interesting journey for us, and we're still there. Like it's not because what you have realized is you can get to the 60-70% mark very easily. Like you can get 70% people to open your email or sign up for that health checkup. But beyond that, there is an intense amount of calling, follow up because people are busy, people are working, they have their meetings and their deadlines, etc. So, but that's where the impact also really shows because if someone is really busy and they can't get time for a health checkup, that's where you really need to ensure that they actually do that checkup because probably they're working too hard and stretching themselves. So that's on the employee wellness side, I would say. Another thing we realized is that you really need to look at things in a break down problems. I can't look at let's say you take a very simple example of again health checkups. If I say that in your company 60% people have done the checkup, how do you get it to 65 or 61 or how do you increase it at all? You need to break it down. So you need to go team wise. You need to say, okay, in my sales team, maybe 90% people have done the checkup, but in my engineering team, only 40% people have done. And that data slicing has to be done. And then you have to reach out as an HR. So then we enable the HR that you go and talk to the engineering manager, ask him to push their teams. Because if HR just keeps repeating something, eventually you become deaf to it or you tune out. So these were some of the learnings, that you need to break down the problem. You need to help the HR team also wants that everyone gets that benefit. You really need to partner. So our tech basically helps uh, doing more actionable things from the HR.
So I imagine you work very closely with HR teams.
Yes, that's our primary, like, exactly. Yeah, we basically help HR teams win, if I summarize it, because HR teams are there to ensure that people in their companies do well, they thrive, uh, and we basically help them do it in a easier, more.
So it's a massive space, and there is I imagine there is a lot yet to be solved. Do you have any view of what are some open opportunities that are yet to be solved in this space for, let's say, an entrepreneur looking to start something in this space?
So on the on the employee benefits and wellness space, there are many things. Even we get overwhelmed, and you might have noticed that from the breadth of things that I was mentioning, because you can go all the way from culture building on like gratitude to fitness, and it's like one level more abstract. You can keep doing that more and more, uh, and each of these problems are big and meaty enough to solve on their own. So definitely a lot of stuff to be done there. I would say, how do you build a community inside your company, and how do you get people to actually take care of each other? Like eventually, like you can only do so much of the HR or the leadership taking care of people. Eventually, you want people to take care of each other as well. So these are, I think, the harder problems and really abstract problems, and that. The second set of opportunities that we see are more on the insurance side.
Let's get into the insurance side as well.
Yeah.
What is
Fair
open
enough.
there?
So one thing that I'm really uh, intrigued by these days is, and that's something that happened after we went through that experience as a company. So you asked earlier that what kind of certifications do you need or have as a company? And one of the things which has happened is this DPDP Act, or uh, Digital Privacy and Data Protection Act, which will be in force in this year in India. This is like the GDPR of India, essentially, where data privacy actually becomes something that the government also cares about. And earlier there would be a leak from a bunch of really big names also, that you would recognize, that XYZ food delivery company had some data breach, or some furniture rental company had some data breach, some telecom company had some data breach, and your, mine, everyone's Aadhaar and address and phone number and something is lying around, and that's why we get so many spam calls all day, right? Like credit card spam to like everything, basically. People trying to sell you stuff to people trying to scam you, happens. So good thing is it's becoming a priority in India also. But then as a company, it's very important to ensure that your data is safe and you're not contributing to this this leak, or this invasion of privacy. And now there are real penalties attached to it. So what we were really worried about is the government came and said that, okay, there is a 250 crore rupee penalty, that if you don't implement measures to protect data of your customers, of your users, that's a penalty the government can levy on the company. So that made us really think that, okay, that sounds like a huge risk as a business. And what can insurance, like us being in the insurance space, that came naturally, that, okay, I'll implement all the things that I can in my control, but still there is some risk, right? Someone can just make a typo. I'm sending you details of your claim, and instead of Adi, I write like AB or something, and it reaches someone else. What about that case? Or what about one of the team members is not too happy with how the manager spoke with them today, and they go rogue, and they leak a bunch of data somewhere on an engineer who makes a stupid, like a silly mistake of like publishing some private key uh, somewhere, or some intern in your company. So you can never control everything which is happening. So that's when we went into the rabbit hole, and we saw that there is a space of cyber insurance, uh, which has been there for a while. It's not a new thing, but it has always been on the sidelines. Like no one really cared about it, because as a country we did not care about data privacy that much earlier. But that is soon going to change, and that is something that we are also exploring, one for our own good, because we don't want to be on the wrong side of the law. But then also seeing how can we help our customers take care of this risk, and where it connects really interestingly back to the employee wellness spaces. So one interesting finding there is that 91% of all attacks actually start as a phishing attempt on someone in the company. So that is really, really powerful if you think about it, that you can have all your antiviruses, all your, cloud security, this, that. But end of the day, it's a human which is going to, make a mistake and be the cause for 90% of the risk that you're sitting on. And that makes your team, your employees extremely important to be, at the center of this. They need to be aware more than anything else that how to handle data and how to again build a culture of security. So still very early for us, but that's something I think there's a lot of opportunity for other entrepreneurs also to do something here, and something we are also trying to explore, that how do we marry the two and how can we help uh, companies deal with this. But
I want to know more about the engineering team at Nova Benefits. Tell us about the engineering culture and how has the team evolved over the years.
that is a topic very close to, like, I think any techie's heart, and I think you being a CTO, me being a CTO, like, yeah, we can talk about that for hours. So yeah, engineering culture at Nova is very. So there are a few opinions that maybe I hold a bit strongly, and they're open to change. But yeah, so far I think they've worked well for us. So one, everyone at Nova is a full stack engineer. We are a small team. We are like some 16, 17 engineers or so, and all of us are full stack. None of us are like, and full stack is not just back end and front end. When I say full stack, I mean you're basically generalists who have skills on every, like, nothing is foreign to you. You don't say, I don't do DevOps, so I can't touch a AWS server, or I don't do AI, so I can't make a small POC that uses OpenAI's, let's say, APIs to try out something. So the good thing is that we have a very distributed skill set. It's not like everyone does everything, but there are, let's say, 4 or 5 people who want to grow into the AI space, and they have developed a skill set on prompt engineering, and they're exploring how new models work. They're reading research papers and helping the company also in the same way. Some people are really into data science side of things. They're building data warehouses, doing POCs. They're building data pipelines, etc. Some people are into cybersecurity side of things, and they're going deeper there. Some people are really interested in how humans and computers interact. In fact, I had one of my engineers who went and did a master's in HCI, human computer interaction, because he was so passionate about front end and building great UI experiences. So yeah, we have people of all sorts, and that has really helped us, because you don't put labels that you are a backend engineer. So you only work on backend and don't do anything else. So that's one thing maybe about our engineering.
Apart from that, can you share a bit more about what was your initial journey adopting Gen AI, or what's your approach towards LLM? Because I think it's very relevant these days that now everyone is trying to figure out like, okay, how does this apply to my industry, or how can I disrupt something?
So it's been an interesting. I think one, the industry itself has like growing really, really quickly. So every week you have something new happening, and even how at Nova we have leveraged it and started using it is has been interesting. So initially, like maybe a year ago, uh, when GPT-3 I think came, that's when suddenly like there was a step jump from GPT-2 to 3 in terms of the quality of responses, and it feeling like it's literally like an AGI you're talking to. Obviously, over time, people figured out there are a few things that it's really good at, like it won't make a grammatical mistake, for example, but then there are a few things it doesn't do well as well. From that to things which happen in the industry around your human in the loop reinforcement learning, and a lot of things happen now. RAG is like the new thing which has been happening for a while. Your retrieval augmented generation, which is I think which is the really killer use case if you ask me for most industries today as well. Uh, and the second use case I have seen is with multimodal models coming into picture, where you have both vision text and even audio, video, these days coming in, that allows companies to do a lot of things on document intelligence, conversational intelligence, and so on. So maybe we can like talk about individual pieces. So first, just talking about RAG, like for us that was extremely useful because there are so much of this, insurance coverages and so much data we are sitting on. And if you're able to retrieve useful things from that, so you can ask a question that, as I said, like, my arm broke and I'm going for the doctor said I need a plaster cast or something. Does my insurance cover it? Now, that question was unimaginable earlier, that without a rule engine, you can't really like hope of solving that, and that too at scale where each of your customers, like if you have 500 customers and each of them have their own policies, it was extremely hard to do earlier. But now it's very easy. You get some unstructured data, you convert that to some, representation, and you can actually query against it. So that has been quite helpful for us. And I think for all companies who deal with data, who deal with documents, this can be extremely useful. We have also built some competence here now after trying some POCs, and it takes time because you have to fine tune a lot of things. You can't afford to make a mistake. You don't want a hallucination, where the document says nothing. It's a vague, it's a gray area answer. The AI should not just go and say that it's covered or it's not covered. So these are some things that we have, we're still learning, I would say.
Tell me more about your philosophy of having every engineer be full stack, because that is not the usual setup. The usual setup is like different front end, back end, DevOps, and so on.
Initially, it was more around like just efficiency, that if you're building a feature, I want you to keep the customer at the center and the problem statement at the center, rather than saying that, I agreed to make this API and I made this API, and I agreed to make this front end and I made this front end. Now it solves the customer problem or not, becomes a debate like when you're releasing it. So initially, it just helped us move faster, where engineers who are more customer centric, who understand customer problems, you explain a problem to them and they build things end to end. Like they iterate internally instead of relying on that I'm backend, I only do this, your front end, you do this. So initially, that was, I think, and that stays true even today, because if you're solving a customer problem that requires AI to be used, so you use it instead of saying that, okay, now an AI engineer will do it. I'm aware that this doesn't scale well. Like if you have a 100-member engineering org, you need specialists because there are some problems that really require that extensive experience and expertise in certain areas. And I think we'll get there. So what is naturally happening is some of these people are specializing in the team now. So it's more of a function of how early I think we are, and it will change eventually. I don't think it's a it's a strong opinion held weakly, you can say. But I do suggest, I think early on, if someone is just building up a team, you don't need to specialize a lot because you don't even know which problems you might end up solving after a year. So, and AI again proves it really well. There was no Gen AI engineer 2 years ago. And today, maybe that's a dedicated role as well. So then either you can hire these people or you can develop these internally within your organization. And I believe that if you train existing people, give them resources, they have that context that they carry across problems, but now they have new skills. So that's really helpful for the company as well. So yeah, that's where that belief stems from.
I want to talk more about this journey of picking the problem statement. Can you share a little bit more about when you first ran into this problem space? How did you narrow down on the problem you wanted to solve?
Right. That's a very good question, especially for people who are looking for new problems to pick up and solve and build a business out of. I think it can be it is pretty important. Like you need to pick the right space, and we had our fair share of learnings as well, I think, and in what we would do differently. Maybe the next time we are picking a problem. So to start with, like this is again something that Saransh really brought to the table with his background, and we see that if you want to, so you should be very clear that what kind of business you want to build. There are two very distinct kinds of businesses, right? One is a boutique business, where you can make money, but might have a certain ceiling in terms of scale. And then there are some people who want to build businesses which are like really large, and you want to build a unicorn, or you want to have millions and millions of customers eventually. So at least for the second category, you really need to be sure that what is the market size or what's the ceiling uh, of the market. And that's how, in fact, Saransh and I did our research. We looked at very, very broad markets. Let's say in fintech, we looked at lending market, we looked at investments, we looked at stockbroking. Even within that, you can keep breaking down, right? And investments, you can have your mass market mutual fund apps. You can have your, again, boutique kind of advisory services, or things like portfolio management services, etc. So breaking down the market is really important, I think, and especially even from a geographic lens, because while you can find some report which says that let's say investing or mutual funds market is XYZ $1 billion globally, the realities might be very different in India or in some other country that you're building for. So two things really important: who are you building for, and what playground or what area will you really play in. How we decided, and then the third is obviously, like, there will be still many options, right? Like there'll be many markets which are big and have opportunities. So the third thing which came into picture for us was the passion for that space. Like, we did not want to be in a space where we're just doing it for the sake of doing it and we're not passionate about it, or where we don't know what can we do differently. So it's all, you need to have an edge. You just don't want to be a me too, or another player in a red ocean. So you have your own views, that what can you do differently, what can you bring to the table. And that's an exercise we did. In fact, we had like more than 150 ideas across industries in a spreadsheet at a time, with all these columns, right? What is the estimated market size, and how much can we realistically get? What can we do differently? Do we feel passionate or not about it? And so on. And that's in fact how we, finally landed on this group health insurance or corporate health insurance space. So few interesting metrics on that front. So another thing, before I go into the metrics itself, another thing which is important is the market might not be large today, but it is growing at a certain pace that makes it large. Let's say 5 years from now. That's another really interesting, way to look at things. That you look at market today and you look at market maybe 5 and 10 years from now, and that's where most of the opportunities also lie. Because if something is a big market and everyone sees that, everyone has gotten into it, and it's a red ocean already. So it's important you go where the puck is going instead of where it is right now. And that's what we try to do with Nova Benefits. We came across this interesting statistic that in India healthcare was really cheap back in maybe before 2020, in the teens, let's say, before that. But then so even before COVID, the healthcare inflation was close to 25% year on year, which is much, much higher than, let's say, your retail inflation or how salaries grow. Right? Typically, you say that 10% is an amazing hike on an average basis, right? So 25% basically means that it's getting more and more unaffordable. You can be doing amazing in your career, but the healthcare costs will just get ahead of you, and you'll not be able to afford uh, basic healthcare after a while. And COVID really made it important. So another thing is the timing bit, where with COVID there was like an inflection point, that suddenly people saw that if you're in an ICU for 10 days, you might be looking at an 8 lakh rupee bill. And even if you make like a crore a year, that's still a month's salary for you. And that's like without taxes. So just to let that sink in, like even if you make a crore a year, you still can't pay a 8 lakh bill like just out of nowhere. You need to dip into your savings, and it's a setback for you. So that made very clear that insurance as a proxy becomes extremely important, because while hospitals will grow because they make more money, more revenues because healthcare inflation is higher, insurance is like a winner by proxy, because the way that payment happens is through insurance. So that was one insight we took away. And the other interesting thing was then breaking like the insurance or health insurance market further. So at that time in 2019, the data we had, the annual insurance premiums were close to 50,000 crores of rupees. So that means basically that whatever premiums people are paying, so if you pay 15,000 rupees for your insurance, the company pays 50 lakh for their employees' insurance, all of that added together was around 50,000 crores. That's both retail and the corporate insurance or group insurance, how it's called in the industry. And at that time, the split was closer to, very equal, or retail being slightly ahead of corporate. So it was like, 27,000, 26,000 crores was retail insurance, which is what go to Policy Bazaar and let's say buy, or an agent comes to you and sells personally. And around 23, 24,000 crore was the corporate health insurance premium size. Uh, there, the belief we had is that if you look at any other advanced economy, let's say you look at Korea, where I had worked for 3 years. Saransh's previous venture was in the US, so he had some idea about that. And obviously, you can read about these things. There are two distinct categories. Either a country goes the public healthcare route, which is common in Europe and even in Korea, where everyone contributes from their salary to like a central fund, and that is the insurance. Basically, government is taking care of the insurance. Or you have a economy like in the US, where your employers are contributing on your behalf to, basically they're paying your insurance premiums. And we looked at India, that where will India be, let's say in 10 years, 20 years time. To us, it was very clear that the government way of, or the public healthcare route won't scale in India, because India has so many different, stratas of people, that government is always going to be busy just taking care of the low income group or bottom of the pyramid. And even today, if you see all government schemes around health insurance are all at the, very low income group category. So for the 5% of India, which is actually employed in a white collar uh, job somewhere, and like government is not going to be there to help. They will still get crushed, like the middle class uh, gets crushed always. So there, and then that segment will increase. Like more and more people will come into more organized workforce and more white collar jobs, and that made very clear that employers have to basically take that responsibility. And we could see that trend. The way group health insurance was growing was faster than retail, because for retail you need to pay for it yourself, and you'll probably do it when you are, let's say, an entrepreneur or you're running a trading business and you don't have the corporate cover available at all. And usually then when something happens in the family, someone gets sick, that's when people go and buy their retail insurance, whereas corporate, a company will buy for you proactively just because you're an employee. So that's how we chose that space. Other interesting thing was, there was not much in terms of innovation that was happening back in 2020 in the corporate health insurance space. On retail, there was a lot happening, but corporate was kind of ignored and was owned by these old school brokers who have been around for 20 years, like Marsh, Prudent, Willis, Howden, etc. So that made really interesting for us, that it ticks all the boxes. Healthcare finance, something that both Saransh and I are passionate about. Big market, growing quickly, not much in terms of innovation in recent past. And then we went really deeper and found actual problems in that space. And we found enough. I think problems exist everywhere, especially wherever innovation has not happened. So, HRs were unhappy, employees were unhappy, insurers were also unhappy, surprisingly. So, that's how we really picked it. And I think that's a great framework that people should follow. Only thing I'll probably add to it now, after like 3-4 years of us doing it, is the willingness to pay element of it, because in India it's extremely hard selling to businesses. Just something that I think all B2B founders in India would relate with. So what will people pay you for is something that you need to uh, really figure out.
What's next for Nova Benefits? What can we look forward to in the next 6 to 12 months?
So I think some things we discussed already, like building on top of these more abstract layers now, going beyond just health checkups and even mental health to uh, having these fitness challenges, which are more day-to-day interaction. So one of the goals we have for us for next 12 months actually is that we want to be in a place where 80 to 90% of our employees of our customers they use our platform on a weekly basis. So we want to convert the infrequent use case of insurance to from something like once a year, that too for just 10% of the employee base, to making employee benefits or whatever the company is doing for the employee. So like a day-to-day thing you talk about, and that is an objective we have picked up, in fact, in our product team, that we want to ensure that 80% of our users are active on a weekly basis, and active not just because you growth hack into it. We want to actually, like, even the definition of active means we are delivering some meaningful value to them. So it might be that they have checked in a physical fitness activity, like, I did 5,000 steps today, and they're getting something in the stepathon, or they have done a mental health check-in where they have told like how they're feeling today, and just a very general check-in that how their day was, or they either gave gratitude to a team member where they said kudos, great stuff on the podcast, Adi, or they got something from a teammate. So these things, or obviously the checkups, and so we basically want to be a platform where people hang out, uh, and they feel good when they hang out on that platform in addition to work. So that's one thing you can expect. Second thing will be on the cyber insurance side. It's still very early, but yeah, you might see something
Yeah, we might be your customer.
there as well. Yeah, would love to. I think you can be so any organization actually uh, is a potential customer for us.
Can you give some examples of what sort of pricing ranges or a budget should a customer of, let's say, Nova Benefits, or I as a leader of a company, I want to buy employee insurance or wellness services. What sort of budget should I have in mind, and how do I make the decision?
Yeah, totally. So on the insurance side, actually, it's very similarly priced to a retail product. So if you go out and buy a insurance policy for you and your spouse, for example, you'll probably shell out some 20,000 rupees for a year, and that is very similar to the range an employer would pay, obviously with much better coverages. So one interesting thing in retail versus corporate is you don't have waiting periods and exclusions that you have in retail. So you can literally go the next day and uh, get some procedure done, and that the insurance will pay for it. But also surprising is the cost is a bit lower. So if, let's say, as a company you want to offer employee only coverage of, let's say, 5 lakh sum insured, it will typically cost you somewhere from 5 to, let's say, 8,000 rupees annually per employee in terms of premium. If you choose to add spouse and children to that cover, it will probably bump up your bill from like 7,000 to something like 12 to 15,000. Again, depends exactly on uh, how many, like, what's the demography of your employees? Are they mostly in 20s, 30s? How many of them have added spouses, children, etc.? So that controls how much claims you can expect on that policy. But that's the broad range. And if you choose to add parents as well, that does inflate the bill a bit, but then the value is also much higher because most claims happen from parents' side. So if you're covering parents and employee and employee's spouse and the children, it'll typically be somewhere from 30,000 to, could be lower, could be slightly higher, but like 30 to 40,000 maybe per employee per year. So, but if you look at the larger picture, like if you're paying, let's say, 10 lakh rupees on average to your employees, that's still less than 4% of their annual pay. And I can tell you, if you give someone a 4% bump versus you tell them, I'll put a 5 lakh bill for your parents' surgery, or your dad's cataract is covered, the happiness is much higher on that 4% investment versus like a 4% cash bump if you offer that. On the wellness and health checkups, mental health side, things are much more affordable, which is a good thing because it's both preventive and like everyone can leverage it, and it's cheaper. So a very basic health checkup you can even get done for something like 500 to 1,000 rupees, like a very basic CBC, like a complete blood count with hemoglobin and some basic metrics. But doing a meaningful checkup where you have your vitamin D levels, you have your HbA1c, and few other things, I'll probably set you back something like 3,000 rupees per employee annually, because these tend to be a bit more expensive than your like just a basic CBC kind of checkup. And mental health is interesting. It comes in all flavors. Again, you can have something as cheap as literally 100 rupees per employee per year. But that's more of the checkbox benefit, where you say this is a toll-free number. You call this if you're in distress. To all the way where you run quarterly emotional check-ins, and even if you don't reach out to a therapist reaches out to you and does a check-in, so that if you are struggling, they can offer to help, and you have much high utilization. And those kind of plans might set you back, let's say even 6,000 to 10,000. Still very cheap if you look at the larger picture, but yeah, 10,000 rupees a year would be a good budget to have for these mental health plans. There could be other things, like there's no limit to the benefits you offer. You can even do like gym memberships, and again, that will set you back something like 10 to 15,000 rupees per employee per year. But still cheaper than buying something on. If you go to a nearby gym, it'll probably they'll quote you 20,000 rupees in Bangalore. So it's still cheaper done through a B2B channel where you have volume discounts. So yeah.
If someone wants to get in touch with Nova Benefits, what's the best way to reach out or grab a demo?
Just message me or Saransh on LinkedIn, or go to our website and just click on get a demo. And yeah, that's how. So our website is novabenefits.com, and you can just look us up.
Awesome. Look, thanks so much for doing this. I think it has been like a really insightful conversation and very educational for me. And yeah, I think overall there is a lot of lack of awareness about the insurance industry in general, a lack of awareness about the specific policies that you have, what your company is providing for you. And yeah, I think there's a long road to go, but we take it one step at a time.
Thanks for having me. Really insightful questions, and love the way you got that out. So thanks for doing this. And as you said, awareness on like one, just what your company is doing for you, but then in general awareness that it's an organization's role to play, I think, is the other important thing that people leaders need to realize, that you can't just do a checkbox approach. You really need, like, if you want an impact, if you want to show an outcome, you need people to like use that benefit or get value from that benefit. So both go hand in hand.
All the best for Nova Benefits and the rest of your journey.